In this section, we're going to learn about two new properties, the zero exponent property and the negative exponent property. So we're going to do this by exploring what happens when we decrease the power to the same base over and over again. So we're going to start with the zero exponent property, and make sure you write that down in your notes. We're going to start with 3 to the third. This is one you should have memorized. 3 to the third is 27. Then we're going to do 3 to the second, and that is 9. 3 to the first is 3. Now I want you to see what the pattern is. How are we changing these numbers in this column here? So if you look at 27 and you go to 9, we are actually dividing by 3. If you start at 9 and go to 3, we are dividing by 3. So if we add another row, 3 to the 0 power, that means we would take this 3 and we would divide it by 3, and that will give us 1. So that tells us that 3 to the 0 power is 1. We're going to do the same type of thing with a different base. We're going to do a base of 4. So 4 to the third power, that should be memorized, that's 64. 4 to the second power is 16. 4 to the first power is 4. Look at what we're doing each time in this column. So from 64 to 16, we divide by 4. From 16 to 4, we divide by 4. So if we were to add another row, 4 to the 0 power, we would take that 4 and divide it by 4, and that would give us 1. We're going to do one more, and we're going to have a base of 10. So 10 to the third power is 1,000. 10 to the second power, 10 to the second power is 100. 10 to the first power is 10. So each time we divide by 10. Here we're going to divide by 10. So in the next row, we would have 10 to the 0 power. So that means we're going to take 10 and divide it by 10, and we get 1 as the answer. So this leads us to the zero exponent property. The zero exponent property tells us that anything to the 0 power is 1, but there is one exception, and the exception is 0 to the 0 power. 0 to the 0 power is not possible. So we now have the zero exponent property to put into algebra. The algebraic way to write that is simply b to the 0 power equals 1, where b is not allowed to equal 0. This is the zero exponent property, using algebra to explain it. Alright, now we're ready to move on to the next page in your notebooks, and now we're going to talk about the negative exponent property. We are going to continue our list from the previous page with the 3's. So we had 3 to the third was 27. 3 to the second was 9, 3 to the first was 3, and 3 to the 0 we found out was 1. Now what if we keep going? So again, to get there we divide by 3, here we divide by 3, and here we divide by 3. So the pattern will continue when we go into negative exponents. 3 to the negative 1 means we're going to take that 1 up above and we're going to divide it by 3. and we're going to write that as a fraction, 1/3. If we continue this pattern, 3 to the negative 2, we're going to take 1/3 and divide it by 3. Now, I'm going to come off to the side here for a second. 1/3 divided by 3 is the same as 1/3 times the reciprocal. That's the keep, change, flip that you learned in the past. The reciprocal of 3 is 1/3. So 1/3 times 1/3 is 1/9. So, if we complete our table over here, 3 to the negative 2 power is 1/9. Let's do 3 to the negative 3rd. We're going to take that 1/9 and we're going to divide it by 3, which is the same thing as multiplying by a third. So this time we have 1/9 times 1/3, and that's 1/27. So 3 to the negative 3 is 1/27. Alright, let's do the same thing with the 4s that we did up above. So with our 4s, we had 4 to the 3rd was 64. 4 squared is 16. 4 to the 1st is 4, and we found out that 4 to the 0 power is 1. And we also figured that the way we do that is we divide each one by 4 each time. So if we have 4 to the negative 1, we are going to take that 1 and divide it by 4, and we get 1/4. If we have 4 to the negative 2, we are going to take that 1/4 and divide it by 4. Dividing by 4 is the same as multiplying by 1/4, so that results in 1/16. And if we do 4 to the negative 3, we're going to take that 1/16 and divide it by 4, which again is the same as multiplying by a fourth, and 1/16 times 1/4 is 1/64. Take a moment to look at all of these denominators that I'm circling here. Take a look at these denominators as well, and you should make some kind of an observation. Okay. These denominators are powers of 3 on the left, and the denominators on the right are powers of 4. So let's write it this way. 3 to the negative 1, which we said was 1/3, is 1/3 to the 1st. 3 to the negative 2, which we said was 1/9, can be written as 1/3 squared. 3 to the negative 3 was 1/27. We can write that as 1/3 to the 3rd. And the pattern there continues. If we do powers of 4, 4 to the negative 1 was 1/4, which is the same as 1/4 to the 1st. 4 to the negative 2 we said was 1/16, which we can write as 1/4 squared. 4 to the negative 3rd is 1/64, which we can write as 1/4 to the 3rd. So what happens if we have negative exponents? It becomes a fraction with 1 as the numerator. Negative exponents turn into fractions, and the exponents become positive. Negative exponents turn it into fractions, and the denominator has a positive exponent. That happens all throughout. Positive exponent. Here, we turn it into a fraction with a positive exponent in the denominator. Here, we turn it into a fraction with a positive exponent in the denominator. So we are ready for the algebraic way to write the negative exponent property. It is b to the negative n is equal to 1 over, it becomes a fraction, b to the positive n. And again, we have this rule that b is not allowed to be 0. In this case, it's because we cannot divide by 0. So that is the property that you need to understand. That's the negative exponent property. And I am going to go one step further with the negative exponent property and deal it with fractions. So we know that the property that we just wrote down was b to the negative n equals 1 over b to the positive n. And I need you to realize that b and 1 over b are reciprocals. So if we think more generally with fractions, the negative exponent property dealing with fractions says a over b raised to the negative n power is going to be the reciprocal. That goes back here. b and 1 over b are reciprocals. So it's going to be the reciprocal raised to the positive exponent. The reciprocal of a over b is b over a. And because I took that reciprocal, the negative exponent becomes positive. So it's b over a to the positive n power. Let's do a couple of examples with that. So example 1, if we have 3/5 to the negative 2 power, I'm going to take the reciprocal of that. Since it's a negative exponent, it'll be 5 over 3 to the positive 2. Now from here, we need to apply the power of a quotient property, which basically says we take this exponent and apply it to both the numerator and the denominator. So it will be 5 squared over 3 squared, and then to simplify that, we get 25 over 9. Let's do another example. And this one's going to have a variable with it. Example 2, we have x over 3 to the negative 4th power. So if we have a fraction to a negative, we are going to take the reciprocal of the fraction, which would be 3 over x. And because we took the reciprocal, that takes care of the negative part, and it becomes a positive exponent. So the negative means reciprocal, so it's now to the positive. Now we have a power of a quotient, so we apply the exponent to both the top and the bottom, both the numerator and the denominator. So we have 3 to the 4th over x to the 4th. And you can use a calculator if you need to do 3 to the 4th, but that's 81 over x to the 4th. So the last thing you need to write down is that the simplified form requires you to have only positive exponents in your answer. Again, we're going to write that down. Simplified form requires you to have only positive exponents in your answer. Okay, so we are going to make sure that you have that written down in your notes. Positive exponents only when you have to simplify everything. So now I'd like for you to make sure all of these notes are written down neatly in your notebook, and once you have that done, you can go ahead and get started on your digits for section 3-5.